this $200 billion funding request. You've got the president basically saying this war is over or close to over, yet the administration says we need $200 billion more. Does that all add up to you?
Well, I think the president goes back and forth. Some days he wants to, he threatens to obliterate Iran's South Pars gas field. The next day he says no more attacks on oil infrastructure. My sense is he's looking for an exit, but certainly wants to predict in the best real estate sellers' rhetoric that the thing's almost over. Look, $200 billion, I think, I haven't seen the details, but right. I have good reason to think it includes resources to rebuild our stockpiles of weapons, which were underestimated by planners for years and which, you know, we're running low on. We need much bigger arsenals than we have. This is a good way to do it. So we have to look at the specifics of the bill, but it may be for things beyond this war, which would be good planning if it did.
The president today, here he was when he was asked about troops on the ground, or at least the possibility of it.
No, I'm not putting troops anywhere. If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you, but I'm not putting troops.
Ambassador, you wrote in the Wall Street Journal an op-ed the other day, I'm quoting here, ending the war now is untenable. Do you believe that the war can be won, whatever that looks like on whatever timeline, without putting some sort of United States troop presence on the ground there, whether it be Kharg Island, along the Strait, or in any other spot?
Well, I think we should put boots on the ground to secure the nuclear program, make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, terrorist hands, or other rogue states. I don't think Trump has any inclination to put boots on the ground, although there are some there now. They just don't look like regular military boots. And I think it's part of the problem Trump has. He has said things going back to January that lead you to believe the purpose of this mission is regime change, which I think is the right objective. And if he fails to achieve regime change, we will get this regime back in force. They will rebuild, and in 5 years, pick your number, we'll be right back where we are today. The president himself said this in Kentucky a few days ago. He said, we don't want to keep coming back every 2 years to do this. Well, if you don't want to do that, the answer is remove the regime.
How do you get to that point, though? We're 19 days in, which is a lengthy time, but not, obviously, considering that this could go on for quite some time. How do you get there? One of the hopes was, or thoughts was, that maybe there would be some sort of an uprising, and we haven't seen it.
Look, they have taken 47 years to build this regime. 19 days is the blink of an eye.
Right.
And if the president had made the case effectively, I think people would understand that. I never believed that there would be an uprising and the regime would collapse. What I do believe is that if the administration cooperated with the opposition, provided them resources, telecommunications, equipment, money, weapons if they need it, working with the ethnic groups, working with people all across the country who are so dissatisfied with this regime, and also looking to find defectors within the regime, army generals, for example, who might see the need to get rid of this regime if the economy in the country is ever going to recover. And working that way to help pull the regime apart at the top, cause splits within the leadership, after, by the way, eliminating much of the leadership, and cause it to collapse internally. I think that can happen, and at some point, people can come out on the streets, but after they just found 30,000 people massacred in January, they're not going to come out in the streets for some time yet. But there's plenty of work to do to undermine the regime that you don't need to be out on the streets to do.
Part of the argument was being made today, or at least we heard from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He spoke from Israel, obviously addressed his nation in Hebrew, and then spoke in English, which clearly is directed in large part to the Western world. Here he was.
I think that those are goals that are achievable, but I'm not going to put a schedule or a stopwatch on it. I think we have goals that have to be achieved, and we're not counting the days.
How aligned do you think Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump are right now, Ambassador, when it comes to when this could potentially end and what that looks like?
Well, I don't think Trump knows when it's going to potentially end because he doesn't know what his objective is.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.